by the time it comes to us.
I would. Hey, Chris. Chris. I'll be doing the pledge.
Okay. Thank you, Jackson.
Just do it right there.
Hold this up as far as I can. Okay.
What do you got here for me? Carol? What do you get me?
I was hoping for a mint.
For what?
A mint.
I know. I grabbed a mint from home. I don't see a mint.
Whatever that error opinion.
No mints. Those hygiene are really tasty. Mints.
I did, but you've been reprieved. No. You were going to be
And then you're asking for
requested to start us to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, but Jackson's got you. Yeah. Aw, next time.
I know. We'll talk after. Are we ready? I'd like to welcome everyone out to the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, January 6, 2022. And if you guys are willing to take a seat, that's awesome. We'll call this meeting to order, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance that will be offered by Jackson on the Planning Commission.
Please rise. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jackson. And we do have a full quorum today. Are there any conflicts of interest with any of the items on the agenda tonight from the Planning Commission? Seeing none, then we'll go on to an approval of the amended minutes that were sent over for the November 18th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve item 2.4 of the corrected minutes for the November 18th, 2021 meeting.
Thank you, Heather.
Second.
Second by Forrest. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. And now we do have a little bit of an adjustment with the agenda tonight. The applicant for item 3.2 has asked to move his item to be actually the last agenda item on for tonight. So we'll move that past 4.1. And then also on item 3.4 and 3.5, we will just continue that. The applicant has asked us to, I guess, table that. Is that correct?
Yep, there were two applicants, and they both requested.
Okay, for 3.4 and 3.5. So that will just be continued if you're here for those items. And we'll leave the public hearing open and everything else. All right. Yes, it will be renoticed. Then we'll go on to administrative item 3.1, which is a request of approval for the conditional use expansion for Monarch Family Counseling.
And no, I'm not Talia. She's on vacation. So I'm just doing a quick presentation for you on this tonight. As we mentioned in the work meeting, this item is separate from the text amendment that is on for a discussion tonight. But in reviewing this issue, we talked with the Planning Commission about, we currently require therapy services as a conditional use. That's how we classify them. And these are outpatient therapy. So Monarch Family Counseling is providing outpatient therapy. But in looking at this issue, we will be talking again about potentially making that a permitted use with City Council review as well. So this is really a conditional use expansion. The property, the user is already in this center. This is not advancing, Mitch, I'm sorry.
Some of us aren't seeing it here.
There we go. This is the location of the strip mall behind Holiday Oil off of 5600 West and Harriman Main Street. And this is a photograph of the existing Monarch Family Counseling and where they're trying to expand into. So as per advice from our city attorney, when we are reviewing a conditional use, essentially an amendment or an expansion, it does require a re-review of the conditional use. This is a floor plan just for reference so you can see how they're expanding. One of the things we didn't know at the beginning of this review is that there had been a cross-access shared parking agreement between this site and also the Holiday Oil site. They're essentially, they were jointly developed. Once we found that shared parking agreement, that resolved all of our parking concerns. And as noted in the staff report, we are recommending approval of the conditional use expansion or amendment. The attorney for the property owner is here tonight, as well as the applicant or the owner of representing Monarch Counseling, and so they're able to answer your questions, and they do wish to address you on this item tonight before you.
I have one question
Sure.
for Michael. Just because we do have the item 4.1, which is amendment to this, it doesn't, we don't need to say contingent on the approval of city council for 4.1 or anything like that.
No, because this is a conditional use expansion.
Okay.
The other is to change it from a conditional use to a permitted use. So
Okay,
something
got
like
it.
this would not
Got
need
it.
to come
Just
back to
wanted to
the
make
planning
sure.
commission.
Yeah, I thought it was something like that. Just want to make sure.
Right.
Okay. If the applicant's here, if you want to come up, state your name, and then just any additional information you may have.
Yeah, so I'm John Linton. I represent Wagstaff Investments, LLC. I'm not speaking on behalf of Monarch Family Counseling. So just take my comments as representing Wagstaff Investments, the property owner. I don't consider myself the applicant on this whatsoever because I object entirely to the process that we went through to get to this point. It was it was not right. So your city attorney's here. How many applicants come in front of you for a zone change who never consented to it? How many applicants come in front of you who asked multiple times to meet with city management and never heard anything about it? How many applicants come in front of you who have an existing tenancy, many tenants with business licenses that have been granted for many years, only to have the city come into those businesses and threaten to shut them down because their interpretation of the word medical use happens to not include a counseling service? How many businesses have been threatened to be shut down because of that? It's a terrible process. The outcome to grant a conditional use and to make a zone text change is spot on. I agree to that. No objection whatsoever to that. But I came here tonight. I could have just been silent. In fact, staff told me, don't come tonight. This is an administrative decision. Planning Commission doesn't need to hear from you. Just let it sell through. And I wanted to come to raise my sincere objection to the process that we've gone through.
So are you the applicant on this?
No,
Okay.
I didn't apply. I didn't sign anything.
Okay, so
This is entirely
this is time for
pushed-
the applicant right now. If the applicant's not here, there's other public hearings
So
that are
I'll-
appropriate for this
Okay.
type of conversation.
So I'll ask you, who is the applicant?
It says it's Sarah Stroop.
So,
That's what the applicant says on the form here.
Okay.
So that was the one that applied.
so you've got my objection to the process. You've got my
And I appreciate it.
You've got my endorsement of the outcome
Okay?
that where I'm for the conditional use and the zone text change. But what we went through is crazy. And I'd like to see an audit done of every single business in every single strip mall in the city to see if they comply or if you're just targeting certain businesses. Because that's what it looks like. So, said my piece, and for what it's worth, hopefully this doesn't happen to other businesses in your city.
And a good time to bring this up, if you go into the city council meetings, they have some additional time for public comments to add this. And then they're the ones who approve the processes and change them. It'd be a great time to add this. We're more along the lines of ordinance change, like making sure it meets the ordinances, making sure it meets the zoning, and going through that process. A little, just different bodies that with what we handle a little bit.
Will this item go to city council? The answer is
This
no.
one won't need to.
Exactly, that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, but any city council meeting, you can actually go to the public comment and
course.
share this, and they'll be able to
course.
help with the process.
But I want you guys to hear it.
I
Because
appreciate
you're
your
making the
time.
decision.
Commissioner Berbert, and I appreciate John's feedback. He really raised awareness of this issue, the fact that most cities classify this type of use as a permitted use.
Yeah.
And so that's why we discussed that with you, was it November, December, that we were going to initiate that text amendment. So that was good feedback.
That's not my issue.
And that item will go to the city council, talking about the amendment for the permitted medical services in C2.
Right. To be
So
clear, though,
will
my
go.
issue is a member of the planning staff coming to a local business saying, we're going to shut you down unless you get a zone change. So we're going to create the problem, and then we're going to solve it for you and thank us for it. It's not the right process.
Thank you for your comments. All right, are there any discussion on this item from the planning commission?
Well, do we want to hear from the applicant now, the actual applicant?
Is there anything the applicant wants to share? Okay, thank you. All right, then we'll look at the planning commission for additional discussion on the item, if there's any questions about it.
I'm ready to make a motion.
All right. Let's make a motion on this item then.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 3.1, request for approval for the conditional use expansion for the Monarch Family Counseling.
Motion made by Andy,
I'll second.
a second by Heather, and we'll call for a vote. Brody?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Thank you. And that's approved. We'll move on to item 3.3. At this point, a request of approval for the conditional use for a chlorination station. And we'll look at city staff.
I'm also not Talia. I know it's hard to distinguish, but maybe the beard, I don't know. So, let's see. This monitor's not on, and it's always helpful, but this is a consideration for a chlorination station, is what we're calling it. But it already exists in form. There's a trailer on the site right now that is performing the chlorination process. The application is to simply make a permanent structure there to house the chlorination facility into, similar to the one just to the north of the proposed project here. So the zone is A1. Currently, there's a buried tank on the reservoir, or buried tank reservoir on the property, and it's with all these types of buried tanks. There is a chlorination process that requires some housing on the property to, process the water. And then, like I said, the request is to have a permanent facility on site. This is the existing site. You can see the trailer. Not showing up, but you can see it where the trailer site would be, just on the kind of the lower right-hand side of the drawing there. There's a little bump out along the drive path where the trailer is currently located. This is a closer view. This shows the area of disturbance during construction. All of this will be reseeded after the construction is finished, and the landscaping will just basically be a natural native landscape that exists there today. This is an elevation of the building that will be put in place. In terms of screening, the building act basically acts for screening all of the chlorination process, the mechanics of it all. So in terms of conditional use, these are the standards we're looking at, site suitability, harmony with surrounding development, effects on the surrounding development, economic and aesthetic impact, service issues, and mitigating orders. As we went through as we analyzed each of these, we didn't find any outstanding or any really impactful things that this development would cause. So that being said, we are recommending approval of the conditional use for this chlorination station. Any questions for me?
None. Is the applicant here as well? Would you like to come up, state your name, and just if there's any additional information?
I'm Shane Swenson with Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. I serve as their engineering department manager. And basically, I think most of what's outlined is in the packet. State, or the codes require us to have a chlorine residual in every part of the system. And some of our far parts of our system, such as this location, we lose our chlorine residual. So a number of years ago, to assist Harriman and other communities around, we put a trailer there to boost the chlorine residual. And we always knew that was temporary and that we'd want to come back and put a permanent structure, and that's what we're doing now. And with this facility, we've tried to make it coordinate. It's the same color schemes as the existing Harriman booster station that's just 300 feet away. We try to minimize it so that we keep our costs low, so that we keep our water rates low for Harriman City, because we're conscious of Harriman City. We like our relationship with Harriman City as one of our member agencies. So we try to keep all that in mind. And so unless you have any questions, I don't want to keep you any longer.
No, I think I'm good. Anybody else on Planning Commission?
I was just going to say, it looks like a copy of the building just down the hill.
Yes. Yep.
I guess the only question I do have, is this going to have a fence surrounding it or just a structure?
It currently has a fence around the whole reservoir site,
Yeah.
so it's a secured site.
Yeah, all right.
And then we'll keep the building locked inside the site.
Okay, thank you. Turn to the Planning Commission for either a motion or additional discussion if needed.
I'm ready to make a motion if you guys don't have anything. All right, I'll make a motion to approve item number 3.3, request of approval for the conditional use for chlorination station located at 5601 Emmeline Drive in the A1 zone.
I'll second that.
Motion by Heather, second by Jackson. We'll call for a vote. Andy?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
Brody?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
And Forrest?
Yes.
That's how I wrote it down, guys. All right, that's approved. Thank you, guys. Now, item 3.4, I think we just need to continue those without date. Is that correct? Michael? 3.4, 3.5, just continue without date?
Right.
Okay. We'll look for a motion to continue item 3.4.
Chris, looks like.
Oh, hold on.
Can I talk for a second?
This isn't really a public hearing. Are you the applicant on 3.4 or 3.5?
No, I'm not the applicant, I'm the constituent who arrived here to talk about 3.4.
Oh, we will have it on our next meeting when the applicant's able to attend, and it will be open for public comment at that point.
I understand, but I may not be able to attend with COVID and everything else going on. So is there any contingency on that as well?
Eh,
I apologize.
Go ahead, Michael.
We can receive an online public comment. I think we've already received comments from you that we included in the packet. Right.
It was.
And we're happy to receive anything from you tonight. Yeah.
Understand.
As the commission knows, we've been advised by our legal counsel to not hold the public hearing without the presence of the applicant, and they've requested to be continued tonight.
Correct. Okay, so item 3.4, we'll look for a motion to continue, and we'll leave the public hearing open as well.
I'll make a motion to continue item 3.4.
Okay,
I'll second that.
second by Andy, motion made by Heather, and then we'll call for a vote. Brody?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
And Jackson?
Yes.
So 3.4 has been left, the public hearing has been left open, so when they come back with the applicant, which will present this item, because it could change from now till then, all comments will be able to be made by the community still. You will, you'll get a notice. You will,
Yes.
you'll get a notice, correct?
The public hearing is moving.
Yeah.
There'll be a renoticing.
They'll renotice it just like that.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. You said that the public hearing will remain open.
It has been remained open.
We have
We're
it
actually
now.
going to re-notice the entire.
So it'll renotice.
Yep.
There you go.
So
So
there's
it'll
no
be
public hearing
renoticed.
to keep open or close. We'll just re-notice the entire
Okay.
thing. So notices will be sent out to the affected property
All right,
owners as well.
thank you. And then item 3.5, we're looking for similar thing on this one.
I'll make a motion to continue item 3.5.
Motion made
second
by
that as
Heather,
well.
second by Andy, and we'll call for a vote. Brody?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
And Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you. So it will be re-noticed, and then the applicant will come and they'll present it. And so if there's anything that's changed between now and then, when they present it again, you'll be able to see everything as well.
Will we be able to let you know if we're gonna get sick? The people that are within 300 feet of the road,
Yeah. You can,
3 or 4 people, if we get sick, can we postpone it again?
if we can, Clint, if you don't mind just maybe taking them in the hall and then talking to them, he'll be able to tell you the whole process. He'll be able to tell you how it works. We'll be able to take an email. We'll be able to take a public comment if you're able to attend. All of that is put on the record, and so it'll all be addressed. But if you have any questions, Clint can just take you in the hall and answer any of your questions if you'd like. Clint's on the end right here. He works for city staff. All right, then we'll go on to legislative item, which is item 4.1, which is a request for a text amendment to permit medical services in the C2 commercial zone. And this is on for a public hearing as well. And so, Sheldon.
Good evening. Again, I'm not Tally either, but. So, as Mike mentioned earlier during the work meeting and the previous conversation, this is a text amendment regarding medical services and how they're permitted in the C2 zone. Currently, medical uses are permitted as a conditional use. Let me step back one second here. So the proposals we're looking, the proposed amendments we're looking at are changing the use type in the C2 zone, the parking requirements, and the clarification of the term medical use under the definitions in our city ordinance. The existing code, as I said before, medical uses are a conditional use in the C2 zone. The parking requirement is 6 stalls per doctor's office. And again, adding some language to that definition so we can clarify, add more clarity to what type of facilities or practices fall underneath medical services. As I mentioned earlier, keep repeating myself, but again, the use table here on 1016 shows the medical use as a conditional, medical service as a conditional use. What staff is proposing is to change that to a permitted use. Our experience in the past, even prior to the conditional use amendment that came in today, is a lot of the applicants were asking why this particular use was a conditional use in the C2 zone, as a lot of what you see, like uses associated with medical uses are very similar in traffic and appearance. Typical medical services don't usually produce any nuisances outside of what you'd expect in a C2 zone. Again, just to clarify too, any medical use that came to staff that was a development larger than 1 acre would still be required to meet those conditional use standards. So this would probably be specifically more towards like TI finishes and et cetera. The parking schedule, like I said before, the current code requires 6 stalls per doctor's office. That was kind of hard to regulate in instances where the practitioner or the provider was not a doctor technically. They would argue that we're not a doctor, we don't, how do we fulfill this requirement? So this is requiring them parking based off square footage just gives the city a little better tool to regulate how they park these uses. Kind of looking into some research, looking at other cities and et cetera, they usually park about between 200 and 250 square feet per, 1 stall per 250 square feet. We find that be appropriate, kind of looking at how you calculate the 6 stalls per doctor's offices and square footage. It's about the same. In both instances, you can you can overpark some sites. In some instances, you can underpark them. So it's just kind of depends, particularly on what they're proposing. And this also gives us the option to, when a medical facility comes in and they only have 2 doctor's offices at the time and they want to expand, through that approval process, we don't require 12 parking stalls, even though they had like a 7,000 square foot building. This would ensure that parking was there if they were to expand that use. Again, the language we'd like to add to the definition is just what's stated there in the red. It just specifically just states, licensed practitioners and et cetera, and it covers a wider scope of, those types of medical uses. So when we get calls asking where this use follows, we can have a bit more of a definitive explanation for that, for the applicant. So, in review, we do find this proposal that consistent with the general plan, et cetera. Staff does recommend that you recommend a positive recommendation to the City Council.
All right. Any questions for staff?
Just a quick thought. I usually see 1 per 200 square feet when I'm working on medical office buildings. Is that kind of what, or is medical service a little different than medical office building?
Doing my research, they kind of, I guess that those terms are kind of interchangeable, I guess. So kind of looking over what, was out there that we kind of looked at, it went from 200 to 250, just depending. Some had a little more specific type parking requirements, which we, find would be a little more difficult to regulate. We kind of lean towards the 250 as, just to maybe mitigate maybe some overparking instances.
And I would say if we're in a larger strip mall, 1 and 250 is fine. If it's a single building, the 1 to 200 kind of makes more sense. But
Gotcha.
Commissioner Ferguson, we did find, I would say, a majority of the standards we viewed were 1 per 200. We saw some that were 1 per 300 and some that were 1 per 250. So we kind of split the middle. But I agree, the 5 per 1,000 is pretty common. But for a long time, a lot of cities have been feeling like the 5 per 1,000 ends up creating the sea of asphalt. So that's why we kind of went a little more towards the 250. But if the Planning Commission believes that the 1 per 200, which is more standard, that certainly can be your recommendation tonight.
okay.
I guess the only question I have, and this is for Planning Commission as well, are there anything that may need to be added on here that we feel like is not on here, that it doesn't really touch? Because, at least by the definition, I feel like chiropractors would fall in there, things like that as well. Do we need to add that in there, or are we comfortable with how it's written?
I just had maybe one last thought. Is there a difference between inpatient versus outpatient, or do we make any designation there?
We do. It says on an outpatient basis.
Outpatient only.
Yeah, that's what it says,
Okay.
second line.
Okay.
Are there, do we feel like we need to add anything there? Michael, Sheldon? Because to me, this seems pretty clear. I think chiropractors would fall in there. I think other individuals with similar type. I think it's clear enough, but you guys get more response from the community on different things.
And kind of searching for different terms, for this definition. And these additional items here do, cover a pretty broad range of those practices.
Okay.
So just to clarify, this is saying 1 per 200, not 250.
It says 1 to 250.
Why?
Right now it says 1 per 250.
Oh, I'm looking at my packet, and the packet says 200. I didn't,
okay.
I apologize. I wasn't looking at this, I was looking at my packet.
No, and I
So,
apologize. Yeah, the staff report was 250. The PowerPoint did show 200 at one point, which
Yeah.
was changed. So
Okay, very good.
I guess I should have mentioned that. My fault. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I should pay attention to what you're presenting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Initially, we were looking at the 200 and went to 250.
And I like the 250, I agree. We don't need more parking.
Have you had any unlicensed medical services that come through?
Not necessarily unlicensed.
I don't
Like,
know.
for example,
I was
Cal.
gonna say, what's I don't. What would be an unlicensed medical? Just throwing it out there. If there's something
Like a life coach?
Yeah, a life
therapy
coach could be.
business that we saw tonight, so when we were talking about parking,
Yeah.
we were saying, well, how many doctor's offices do you have? And they said, none.
None, yeah.
So technically, 0 parking is required,
Right.
you know, for, if we're saying that they're a medical service. So anyway, so
Yeah.
that's why, again, this is
And technically, yeah,
going to a
yeah,
ratio.
in that instance, they were licensed social workers. That's kind of where they fell. But like a massage therapist, you know, any of those types of medical uses do require some sort of licensing through a government agency, so. Unless there may be some Eastern medicine that doesn't fall under, but that kind of is covered underneath the definition here under
Like
the
homeopathic,
healing
I don't
arts,
know.
I think is how that's referred to.
Yeah. Okay.
Probably rare.
All right.
Yeah.
This is on for a public hearing as well. And so I will open that up at this time. So if there's anyone who'd like to come up, share public comment. I think we're good. We will close, oh wait, did we get any emails on this item? Okay, then we will close the public hearing at this time, turn to the Planning Commission for additional discussion or a recommendation, a motion for a recommendation to be made to the city council.
I'd like to just say real quick, for me personally, I'm actually really excited about this because my wife is a licensed therapist. And the only reason she doesn't have an office in Harriman was because of this rule. Because she couldn't open an office without having 6 spots, but she's a sole practitioner and she just wanted a small little area. So I think that this fixes an issue that is common.
And she'll like the 250.
Wow.
Hopefully.
That's what I was kind of just going to Jackson's point, like building type is tricky, because I get where the difference comes from.
In most cases, they're in a larger facility, you know, like they're in a larger strip mall, and it's not a big deal.
Right.
It's just that one-off where they might have their own building.
Well, and at that point, they can come in and we can give them a variance, right? At that point, if there is anything that's, doesn't fit with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then if
They can build
we are going to
workshops.
recommend this or not recommend it, or however we go with this with the motion, well, can you guys just state the 250 or the 200 since it was different in both places?
See if I can find it.
I would say we go with the 250, so I'll
I
make a
agree.
recommendation that we approve,
Recommended.
recommend the motion with the 1 parking per 250 square feet.
And then the text change that was in there as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second
Motion made.
that.
Second by, I'll give it to Forrest.
All right, fine.
He started, you just finished. And we'll call for a vote. Forrest?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Brody?
Yes.
Jackson?
Yes.
And Andy?
Yes.
That's how I wrote it down. Before we came in here. So, all right, and then item 3.2. So we will go back to item 3.2. Request of approval for conditional use of a soil processing operation for Husky's Landscaping. And city staff.
So this is a request for a soil processing operation. It's located down in the southeast quadrant of the city here. It's currently zoned M1, where soil products are permitted in that particular zone. This is the subject property here. It's composed of 2 contiguous parcels. It's intersected by the Wells-Jacob Canal there. This is a site plan kind of showing the process on this site. As you're currently aware, the applicant is actually working on the site at this moment. He has been working with staff, and we've been trying to get this resolved, trying to get this through commission. We just had a few setbacks, but as he's proposing and been operating on this site, he has access coming in off of Redwood Road, which travels into the site. It's a right-hand turn only. From that point, he's designated an unload load area. This is kind of where they dump their materials or fill their trucks and et cetera. The back area here is going to be for material storage. There they'll have material storage as well as they'll do all their soil processing back there. Let me step back here. I think I forgot to mention a few probably important things. Let's see here. Come to me, I'll bring them up. I apologize. So the applicant, so he's actually not developing this site. He's only working on this site. He's not proposing to build any permanent structures. He's only using this for soil processing. And in this actual process, he's not actually, he's not mining the site at all. It's all import, export. And his primary, I guess, patrons will be contracted drivers. So he's not going to be open up as a retail service, as just a, a drive-in, drive-out to load up materials. Again, like I said, he's not mining the site. He's bringing material in, processing it, and then sending it out throughout the valley. The applicant actually currently works out of Bluffdale. He's just looking to expand his business here into Harriman City. Kind of went through kind of how the layout of the site there and how he intends to use the site, or as he is using the site, as well as working with the applicant. There was some requirements, even though he's not developing the site with an actual building, there are some requirements that we feel he had to meet to at least ensure he's mitigating any nuisances or impacts on surrounding properties. One of those obviously is a landscape buffer along Redwood Road. What he's proposing is a 15-foot landscape buffer that runs from edge to edge of the property there. City ordinance requires a 20-foot buffer. He's asking to reduce that to 15, just due to a lot of the elevation of the site. The site along that property line kind of goes up and down 4 to 8 feet, so asking to put an additional 2-foot berm on top of an 8-foot already swell, he didn't feel that was quite necessary at that point. He is intending to landscape that strip with the required trees and required ground cover. On the site as well, there's an easement from Jordan Valley. I think there's a large water pipe that runs through there, and that easement there, I think it's about 80 feet wide. He's not permitted to put fencing in, plant trees. He's okay with ground cover, et cetera, but that explains the gap in landscaping there. Also, the applicant was originally proposing just to cover the rear site. Staff recommended that the entire storage bin and processing site be encased in be enclosed in a masonry fencing. The ordinance does allow for a chain link fencing with slats. We just feel something more durable would be more appropriate for this type of use. I guess these are some things we've discussed already. So the landscape buffer, that the applicant is asking a reduction to 15 feet. This is due to the site topography where there's variations where that actual buffer runs, and like I said, adding that additional 2 feet on top of an already 8-foot berm. You didn't see how that would be any beneficial for him to add that 2-foot berm. He's asking for a reduction in the overall landscaping requirements, so he's asking for a waiver of strict compliance. Right now, he's providing 8% of the total 10% required. He's short about 2,500 square feet of landscaping to meet that 10% requirement. He's also required to install 1 tree per 500 square feet of landscape area. What the applicant stated is, the site is he's not developing the site at this time, and he doesn't feel that it's necessary to have those improvements in. Plus, he doesn't want to landscape the site not knowing how he's going to actually develop the site in the future. So installing trees and et cetera, and then have to tear them out if he has to change the site around. The applicant does, he has proposed to the city, he just stated that he plans to turn this into a nursery in the future. Other issues on the site are there's no water available on the site, there's no power, there's no sewer. Just that location, there's no water available. There would be an option, I guess, to cross Redwood Road and tap into Bluffdale, but that's, not something it's not feasible for him to do so. So what he's considered, or what we've discussed, is storing water on site, and that storage of water would be used to mitigate dust and et cetera. It would also be used for landscaping and for other, I guess, practices throughout the site, but we would require him to at least maintain a storage facility on site or a water truck somewhere to, make sure water is always on site. He did have discussion with the Welby Jacobson, the possible agreement for him to actually pull water from the canal when the canal is open and running during the canal season. Electrical, if necessary, there's a vault out there in the right-of-way that has potential, there's potential there for him to actually connect into some sort of electrical service if he was to require any electrical services at the site. So in lieu of those facilities, he's providing portable lavatories and like hand washing stations for the employees who will be on site. Typically, the employees he's looking to have on site will be just the machine operators. It'll be fairly low staffed. Something we're working with the applicant still on is engineering wants to see an agreement, an access agreement from UDOT with the applicant on this approach here. It is an existing approach that's been utilized for, prior to him even owning the property. Engineering is just concerned if there's, any requirements that UDOT requires him to fulfill to utilize that. They want to make sure he's complying with UDOT. He has talked with UDOT. He said UDOT has given him a verbal approval to use that. He says he's just having a hard time getting something in writing from UDOT.
So right now, he's using that access point through UDOT, but he doesn't have anything past a verbal agreement that he's allowed to.
That's correct. And
We know that the property has an access right. What we're not sure of is what improvements UDOT may require. Verbally, we're being told that UDOT is willing to defer improvements because they know that they're planning on making improvements of their own and widening the road. But we want to see that in writing, and we haven't been able to receive that confirmation from UDOT currently. But there is a historic access, and nobody is really challenging that. It's just how should the access be improved?
Would we, now I see track pad, is the track pad for getting mud off the tires before they
yeah,
go
so
onto
the track out pad is, it's on site already.
Is it just the gravel or is it a grate?
No, it's a pad, it's a graded pad, from my understanding.
So the stockpile itself is 15 foot away from the right-of-way of Redwood Road?
The stockpile or the?
Okay, you had a 15-foot buffer to the right-of-way landscape strip. So the soils that are piled there, the stockpile can be within 15 foot of the right-of-way.
Well, I guess, so technically, yes.
So what, I get the water, the mitigation.
Right.
But in reality, what keeps half of his stockpile from blowing out onto Redwood Road?
Right, so at this time, there's erosion fencing installed, and we're assuming with the precast wall, that will help kind of maintain a lot of that. He's referring to it as temporary storage. As he gets in large shipments, he'll process them and remove them off site. As far as drainage along the site, he has an erosion control plan showing, any runoff and et cetera. I don't, you're probably referring more to dust or just water in general, or just runoff, contaminated runoff, I guess, soil runoff.
Soil getting blown across.
Yeah, I think he's more concerned with dust.
With dust.
Did I hear you say that he's going to put in a solid fence?
Yeah, we're
required to have
a requirement,
precast.
yeah, a masonry fence around the entire.
It's not required, right? It's recommended.
That would help.
Yeah, well,
No, number 5, 6-foot masonry wall required around all storage. Oh, that's just storage areas. Yeah. And that's just storage.
Point bigger than what he.
So that's not around the property.
No, the green.
right, just the storage. The storage.
Yeah.
So, but his requirement is to only, or the city requirements are only a fence with slats, right?
Yeah. At a
But I guess
minimum,
the reason I'm bringing this up is we're looking at some variances to some of those strict compliances, right? So we need to have a justification for allowing that. And for me, I guess requiring the more, the better.
wall.
Better wall is a justification.
Do we want to hear from the applicant and then we
Yeah,
can have
maybe
some
s-
further
maybe so.
discussion?
But anyhow, that's,
Gotcha.
yeah, we need to have some justification for that.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Like, man, that was about it. I guess if you have any additional questions for me, I'm hoping the applicant at least made it virtually. There was a misunderstanding at some point. He was out north. He said he tried to make it here by 7:30. That's the last I've heard of him, from
Is he
him.
not here yet?
I don't see him here.
That's not him, huh?
No.
I thought that might be him. He's still sitting here.
I'm not sure if he's trying to log in virtually or not, or.
So at least, and we can discuss a little bit. So a couple thoughts that I've had, and I don't like the idea of not having something from UDOT saying that they have access through this, especially if we approve something that all of a sudden he can't use at all. So we just approve something he can't get to. And so I do think we do need to get something in writing saying you
Well,
can
that's
use this access point.
That's item 4, is that right? 4 on the.
Yeah, and so that's one item for sure. The landscaping, rarely do we ever give deviations on that. Especially if they're gonna widen that road to the point where it's his property and there's no landscaping required, I think we've done a disservice to the community. So whether it's, because I know there's an image with some potential ideas of landscaping with trees and stuff, but that's not a finished landscaping proposal or anything like that, unless that is their landscape plan right there and that's all we see. And so, I mean, that's at least my two concerns. I don't think this is complete enough to move forward without the applicant here to be able to discuss and maybe give some insight to some of these items that I'm concerned with at least.
I'd be concerned too with the Welby Jacob Canal. What kind of mitigation is going to be used to prevent any soil or contamination of the actual, canal?
Is it just,
It's enclosed.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's covered,
Oh, the canal's covered.
this portion.
Okay.
It's actually, I believe it's open.
Bridge over it, right?
Yeah, there's a bridge, but it's
Yeah, I think you're showing the bridge right there.
There's just,
It's,
yeah.
further up the way.
yeah, the canal is actually above it.
When I was on site, that was the part that I saw.
Gotcha, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not mining here, though. This is
No,
just
he's not
a
mining.
transfer area.
Right, this is just piles of dirt and rock and stone and,
Well, I'm not so concerned with the access. It's there. The only
Right.
debate is the improvement for the access, not whether or not access is allowed. To take it away, UDOT would have to buy him out.
Right.
Commission, I would recommend that we continue this item until the applicant is here and also just cut off any further discussion. I mean, it sounds to me like we're moving towards a potential denial. I would rather the applicant be here
Yeah,
to
no,
address
no, I think
some
it's
of
a continuation, so the applicant actually can come and present it, and if there's potential ideas for change or what they're willing or not willing to do, we can talk about it.
Yeah, well, and hopefully he's heard some of the comments as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So,
This has been a
Or will.
project we've been working on for quite some time, and we were just hoping to mature it with some feedback from the commission. So, and this has been helpful, so thank you.
Yeah, and I guess just, there was a comment made about the canal. I'm not so worried about it. It's a canal. It's dirty water. It's not, I mean, it's not contaminated water, but it's not drinking water
Yeah.
either, so I'm not.
I'm a little
as
more concerned with
about
just
that.
the landscaping, because Redwood will expand at some point, it's when and where and how much.
Right.
And so,
And the
not having a
dust.
landscaping,
And the
when all of a
dust.
sudden you're right
Yeah.
against the road, and
So, yeah, and
I
he is
think that would be a
proposing
disservice to
that
the
landscape
community.
buffer across Redwood Road there, 15 feet. And
But he did request no trees.
what's that?
We have trees there, and I think later on it said the request
not
was
putting in any trees.
zero trees.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So-
So that's 0 trees for the interior of the lot.
Oh, okay,
Got it.
so for
So
the
that
interior,
buffer will
so
still
this
have the
is what they're
trees.
planning, okay,
Yeah,
got it.
sorry.
Got it,
Yeah.
that's where I was unclear.
which, if he just increases his buffer by 1 foot along that strip, then he'd meet the 10%.
Yeah, so maybe we look to continue wait for the applicant.
Okay.
So,
I'll make a motion to continue item 3.2.
motion made by Heather,
Second. Chase's day.
I was just looking at Chase.
I'll second that.
second by Jackson. We'll call for a vote. Jackson,
Yes.
Daryl,
Aye.
and Andy,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Forrest,
Yes.
and Brody.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. So that will be continued without date. All right, item 5 is, are there any additional comments from the Planning Commission that need to be made?
If I may.
And staff, and staff.
I just wanted to thank you all for reporting back your training for 2021. Something I did not know until I re-reviewed state code late this afternoon is that attendance of 12 planning commission meetings in one calendar year may count up to 1 hour. So with that, all commissioners met all of our training requirements. Several of you exceeded it. You took advantage of some of those online links, so thank you.
So if we're here for 24, does that count for 2?
No,
Oh,
darn it.
all right.
Still get
Okay.
1.
I tried.
You're gonna come extra
But
time.
anyway, I
I guess we don't have 24.
It's very impressive to see how much training, though, that this commission was willing to do in the last year, so thank you.
Great. Future meetings, Wednesday, January 12th will be city council meeting. Thursday, January 20th, planning commission meeting. And Wednesday, January 26th, city council meeting. We'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Are you here on the 20th? I am not.
Yes, I should. All right. Yeah.